we will be talking about circular design in action. So it will actually be a session focused on not the myth of circular design and all the technicalities and frameworks around that, but really hands-on. What can circular design mean for you, for your company? What can circular design mean for all of us at the end of the day? A couple of practicalities before we get started. You will all be muted, so you will not be able to ask questions, but there is a chat that you can see in the lower right-hand corner. There throughout the session, please feel free to type in your questions or any comments you might have. We'll get back to those in the QA later on with Tapani and Max when we talk a little bit more about your specific situation, your specific questions. Maybe as a warm-up, could I ask all of you to type into the chat where you're from, where you're joining from today, and maybe why you're here today? What's your interest in circular design? What's your expectation for the session today? So if you could type that into the chat, and I'll keep talking while you actually do that. As a reminder, again, the chat should be in the lower right-hand corner. Cool. So before we get started, maybe a couple of words about Tybo, who we are, and then I'll introduce the speakers for today. Tybo is actually a young company. We're 3 years old. We work on the intersection between strategy, design, data, circular economy, because we believe that circular economy and data technology altogether are strategic game changers in our time today, and they will fundamentally change the way we will operate, we will live, we will work. And that's why we're bringing all of these topics together to help our customers in Finland, in Germany, but also in many other locations in utilizing the strategic possibilities that circular economy provides, both in the sense of revenue uplift, as well as in the sense of having a positive handprint and minimizing the footprint that they have on our environment. Happy to discuss more. Don't want to bore you with a long company presentation here. If you want to hear more about Tybo, drop me an email or basically write into the chat, and then I'm happy to provide some more color into what we do on a day-to-day basis. But without further ado, as they say, let me introduce the speakers. And as you have seen in the announcement, as you can see on the screen here, the two gentlemen that will be talking next basically have over 25 years of experience in design, in circular design, but also in the broader design context. Max is at Fraunhofer. He's also at the Technical University of Berlin as a researcher, working a lot around circular design, currently also working with us in Tybo on very many different topics. He will talk later a little bit about the maturity model that we're currently working on jointly. Tapani has a background in Nokia, has been responsible for many of the design or big designs that we know from Nokia. Many of us most likely have held one or two of his designs in our hands already. Is now also working at Fraunhofer and with Tybo to basically bring circular design to life for our customers. So I'm very happy to welcome both of them, have both of them in the Tybo team. And with that, I would hand over to you, Max and Tapani, to take it away and talk to us about circular design in action.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I hope everyone can see the presentation. Welcome, everybody, from our side, Tapani and me. We'd like to present you some insight on circular design, some nice cases, but also how to lever the maturity level in your company, circular economy maturity level. And we start right away. Any questions, please put into the chat. So, as you probably aware, there are many drivers going, drivers pushing you or pushing companies and becoming more sustainable. On the one hand, customer demand is shifting. You see it probably here also in Berlin, for example. So less and less people, especially the young generation, have cars. They share cars. There are so many car sharing services in Berlin. It's incredible. So shift from owning stuff to sharing stuff or leasing stuff or having access to stuff. And then there's, of course, regulators pushing circular design, circular economy. You're all aware probably of the European Commission Green Deal. So the European Union wants to become carbon neutral by 2050. They put 1 trillion euros in the market basically to do this. And circular economy is one of the main strategies they push forward to reach this. Then, of course, big investors such as BlackRock or the Norwegian pension fund are investing in green companies and looking also to minimize risks, look into companies, how sustainable they are. So green investment is also from the regulatory side a big thing by the European Commission. And new competition emerge also through the customer demand. We see more and more service companies based on a circular service based business model, also a digital based business model. So there's basically, as it says, a hurricane coming, and this will change our life and how we work, how we interact, how we generate value. So this is just a nice statement I found. It's from April from European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. She says, even in times of crisis, we will need to bounce forward. And we will use our money not to bounce back, but to build a more resilient, green and digital Europe. So if there's any hope that we can draw back the clocks and bounce back into old habits, no, we will develop a green economy in Europe. And you see some measures or action points from the Green Deal, from the Circular Economy Action Plan, which focuses on, of course, production and consumption, developing eco-design requirements for electronic products, for example, pushing green public procurement forward. Also pushing product environmental footprint so that products are comparable. But there's also a lot of actions planned for reducing packaging waste or reducing waste. There's, of course, plastic is a big topic, avoiding plastics, but also putting into place requirements like a quota on recycled plastics. And as I already mentioned, the green growth, so financing green growth, and pushing any instruments in that direction, taxation, state aid, R&D funding, for example. So, Tapani, will you take over?
Yeah, thank you, Max. And one of the Green Deal and actions are related on products. So rights to repair. The new repairability requirements adapted on October 19 last year by EU Commission. And this is a real turning point that how we produce on and use our products. So all the products in this in next year, 2021, all the TVs, monitors, fridges, freezers, washing machines, washing dryers, dishwashers, and the lighting products have to fulfill these requirements. So they have to give the offer spare parts for those, and also prepare guidelines and all that. So basically it means pretty much redesign most of the domestic electronics what we have today. So it's all about extending the lifetime of the products, and let's see. It's 2021 is coming really fast. So, and tomorrow is designed today. So hopefully we have time to change that. And the next slide, please. And this is really interesting one also. So in Davos, the Circularity CAP report was launched. And in 2018, the percent was 9%, and we are going already backwards on this, that this year it was 8.6% of materials are recycled. So as we all know, everything is designed what is around us, man-made things. So we are really bad in design because most of the materials are used only once. 90% of materials what we are using will end up on landfilling, and that is a huge challenge for especially for designers and product developers. Next one. And in our pandemic crisis, what we have at the moment, we have shown that governments and people, we could fight against this and flattening the curve of keeping our healthcare. But basically this could apply really well also, that if we have motivation, if we have will, we could also fight against the climate change, and we could do the same. Could you hear me now? It says that. Next one, please. So change will come. Are you ready?
So, as you probably aware, circular economy is one way or one basically economic model which helps to reduce the environmental impact of our economy. And the whole idea behind the circular
seems that
Sorry. Did you lose me?
Max, we can still hear you, but Tapani dropped off. If you can reshare your screen.
All right.
That also for some reason dropped off. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
I will start the screen share mode again.
Yes.
And 1 second. So it's my take anyway. So yes. Shall I proceed?
Yes. Just go ahead.
Yeah, as you all know, circular economy. So the whole idea behind the circular economy that is to prolong the lifetime of the product, to maintain the value of the product as long as possible by different strategies like repair, maintenance, upgrade, but also reuse and remanufacturing. And the last thing you want to do is actually recycling, because at the recycling stage, you destroy all the value which you put into the product, all the value creation, all the resources you put into the product, all the money, all the time you put into designing and developing and manufacturing the product is destroyed by recycling. So I always take the example of an iPhone, which you can buy for over 1,000 euros. And the actual material value, talking about gold, silver, whatever, it's below 10 euros. So Apple is doing a good job to lift 9,990 euros, basically. And by recycling, you destroy all that value. And but going that way, it's easy to say, and it's easy to talk about circular economy, but it's actually a long way. And this is what we developed here. It's still in development, our maturity model to assess where companies stand from being inactive, or basically not aware and not interested in circular economy, to being proactive company which takes a forerunner role, which also means that the company pushes that topic forward with partners, with policymakers, with their customers, and so on. So to come from level 0 to level 5, of course, it's a long way, and we like to support you on that way. So there's several action steps which you have to take. Of course, if you're not aware of circular economy, you can raise interest within the company, within the management board. We can help you to develop your circular economy strategy and your circular economy goals. Also develop an implementation plan for that. And of course, you have to develop especially infrastructure and processes. So you have to recreate your value chain and supply chain. You have to think about how you create value also to the environment and social values. You have to leave your linear business model and think about, for example, pay-per-service business model, pay-per-access business models. You have to not just design a product, but also design a circular economy ecosystem, taking into account product flows, information flows, partners, services, business aspects. So it's much more complicated. You have to establish, of course, a reporting system, a monitoring system, to be able to assess your success, reaching your targets, your environmental targets, for example, but also your business targets, of course. And of course, be able to report your targets and your way inside and outside the company. And in the long run, you also want to include as many people as possible to help you with solving challenges you have along the way, basically. So that's already on level 5, where we are really proactive and are really open to engage with as many as people possible within your ecosystem to drive a circular economy forward. So overall, to be successful, it needs many capabilities within the company, for example, on a strategic level, risk assessment, complexity management, systems thinking, life cycle thinking. Of course, you have to change on an operational level your processes, how you purchase, how you manufacture, how you sell. You have to change the design of the product. You have to change your design process. And of course, include new technologies, for example, to monitor your products during the value circle, during the life cycle. And on the macro level, you also have to address all 3 pillars, basically, of sustainability. You have to not just react to societal changes, but also push social innovations forward, to drive environmental behavior, for example. The goal is to not just avoid environmental impacts, but actually try to regenerate the environmental capacity, to support the regeneration capacity of the environment. And of course, last but not least, also to create a business and value for yourself, but also for your partners. Because if you don't do that, they won't work with you. So, Tapani?
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully the network works. I'm in Aalto University and I have used already 3 different VLANs in here. But okay, as Max said, we are really facing a systemic change in here. And systemic change always takes time, but unfortunately we don't have too much time to achieve all the goals what we have set. As you could see here, that this fundamentally changed the way we think and produce and design our things, and that's why I have drawn here if you use the roller, you could draw the lines, and now we need a new tool set and using the compass and others. The 3 cornerstones in circular design are the users, the consumer experience for making the premium experience and understand the needs to optimize all our products and our features in there. Then we have the products and product systems and product service systems. So it's an enormous shift from the traditional product design, what we are doing, that making the as environmental friendly product as possible, selecting carefully materials and all that. That is not enough. We also have to look at the ecosystem, that how we enhance the circularity, and especially the digital platforms, how that would be the easiest way to build. And then we have to learn new skills also, and especially in the design side, that many times the design might start actually in a new business models. That how is it the access model that you are providing, or is that the ownership like in a traditional way? But many times when you create a product that lasts, for example, 10, 20 years, you know already that same customer will not come back on you and buy the new product. So you have to find a new way to do the business. And next one. And as we know, 80% of environmental impact is already decided on the design stage. So it means that your design brief, the specification, requirements, goals, everything have to be in a place before you draw even a line on that product. So you have to educate your people also and yourself that you do the right decision when you start to design. Next one. And this image shows really well also that when I start to work with eco design, circular design, I'm a visual person and I Google that what comes out, and in left you saw what I get out. But for me, circular design is totally different. It's more on the right side, that how we make circular design, ecological design in desirable, and they just have to be much better. And consumers often have negative association with sustainable products that they are lower quality, less aesthetic, and more expensive, which is a little bit that old side. So we really have to rise the bar and design the better products. And the next one. So as I said already, circularity starts with design. So you have to design for maintainability, repairability, compatibility, upgradability, dismantleability, recyclability, because you can't retrofit those features later on. So if you want to have a recycled product, you have to start on designing the recyclable product and so on. So it really changed the way we design the things. And the next one. This is one project that I work on the past. It's a Finnish startup, Circular Devices, and we were working on modular sustainable phone that applying all the circular economy principles and making a product that you could keep alive for 10 years, for example, and it have 3 different parts. And next slide shows really well how every touch point here you could see the system design that we started with the system really and looking all the steps and how to close those loop to keep this product alive. And also how we could upgrade it, how we could repair it, and how we could bring the new functionalities also in along the life cycles. So try to keep that out from the recycling and end of the life, that there is always a meaning for each modules. Next one. And this was one work that I made in Fraunhofer. We wanted to showcase our know-how in microelectronics and sensors and those areas. And it was a great opportunity also to piloting our new methods, that how we could actually create a product that is more flexible, and you could change the function with the changeable models, and you could repair it. And how we could keep it alive without, for example, software obsolescence and things like that. And next one.
Yeah, thanks, Tapani. I brought you a project also from Fraunhofer. And this is a European STARS project. It's a science, technology, and arts where the European Commission supports the co-creation process between technologists and artists. Here we work on fashion, like different hubs in Linz, in Berlin, and in Valencia, Spain. Providing technologies such as 3D printing. As Fraunhofer, we provide smart textile technologies, and also sustainable finishing technologies in Valencia. And we also created a co-creation process in general, but also one which is focusing on eco-design or sustainable development, where we developed several tools. For example, a checklist to assess the circularity of your product, but also we go into co-research and developing design principles and business models, developing ecosystem and stakeholder networks. And of course, we develop technologies together with the artists. And we have 3 teams in the hub Berlin. One team is the team ALMA, which is developing a wearable biosensor to monitor vaginal discharge, to detect infections, for example. And the concept you see here on the left, the conceptual design, is based on several iteration steps from insights on the user, but also insights from the environmental assessments, so that the product is really modular. So you have a yellow pad where the sensors are integrated, a soft pad, and probably a more solid a microcontroller, which sends out a signal to a phone over RFID, for example. And the only electronics which is actually integrated in the textile is the connection, the interconnection between the microcontroller and the sensor pad. And what we're currently doing, we test the electronic circuit or develop the electronic circuit. And together with the University of Cambridge, we develop the soft sensor, basically, so flexible textile-based sensors for the underwear. This is a really small company, really young designers, but of course there's Philips with a long legacy of environmental or sustainable design. Since 20 to 30 years, they're moving that way. So it's no surprise that they're also going towards circular economy. They want to close loops for recycled plastics, for example. We also have a project at Fraunhofer where we develop several prototypes with them on using recycled plastics, and they follow circular economy principles, and also understood that they have to develop new business models, such as service-based business models, in the future. And Dell also popular for their sustainable design. They have their own design for environment principles. They have to apply for each of their products with several principles, guidelines they're using. And here you see, for example, a laptop design where they use recycled carbon fiber from NASA, from the space agency.
Yep, and also the new tools, as I explained earlier, the AI, how that will affect also for our life in design. And here is what Philip Stark made for Cartel, using the Autodesk artificial intelligence, and started with the question that artificial intelligence, do you know how we can rest our bodies using the last amount of materials? And no surprise, it's pretty much biomimicry, mimicking nature and all that, but it's a minimum amount of materials that you need when creating still stable and good structural share. And we will see in the future more and more these type of products, and it will definitely save lots of resources to go towards this type of products. And the next one. Is it freeze? Okay, and here is the Swedish electric motorcycle cake, and it's made same guy, Stefan Utenborn, that are behind also the Swedish Bock, the company that makes sport equipments and things like that. And it's really purpose-driven design, that it's fully modular, repairable, upgradable. They are selling this as a moped and a motorcycle, and you could change all the parts there. And also it's a modular that all the bars and racks that you could create a courier type of moped on cities and things like that. So this is the way we will see more and more products are built to be flexible, be more environmental friendly and repairable. And the next one. And here is our circular design journey and how we do it. Usually we are using the British Council double diamond process with 4 different steps. The steps that discover, define, develop, and deliver. That first having a research and understanding the problems what we are facing, and then when you have learned enough on that topic, defining that in a design brief. And you could see here also, as I said earlier, that 80% of environmental impact is already built when you start to design. So this part is super important on our processes. And then you develop the possible solution for that, and deliver is more prototyping, iterating, testing, seeing will it work and improve it, that in the end you will have a solution. So in a first step, we usually do the assessment inside the company. Also, we have to train people inside, scanning a little bit what are the current trends and forecasting, and making the circular economy opportunity map for each company, that they understand what kind of challenges and what kind of opportunities lays in the future. And in a define stage, we start to build the strategies, looking what are the innovation areas that are important for them, and then creating the strategy how to actually get there. On develop disrupt stage, we usually then work, of course, with the product itself and the concept and narratives, how we could actually do it that, but also looking the business models, what kind of partners network you need to achieve this, and looking the whole ecosystem. And in deliver stage, we will do the implementation plan and go to market and branding. And circular economy, circular design is that it's not that adding just on your processes. It have to be ethos of the company and the brand that you will succeed to create better products in there. And the next. So, are you ready for action now?
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Max. Thanks a lot, Tapani, for the presentation. And let me maybe take over the presentation at the same time. Really interesting presentation. Just a reminder, if you have questions or comments also from your experience, we would be eager to hear your experience as well, and how you have been. I read we have some people that themselves have been working in circular design. So it would be great to also hear your experience. So if you would like to share that with us, please feel free to type that into the questions. Maybe the first question for the two of you. With so many cheap items coming from China, but also from many other places that are being sold on Amazon, on all these different platforms, how will the design for repair be applied there, specifically in the e-commerce space, where it's not that easy to basically pack your stuff back in, send it back for repair? How do you see that? How will the infrastructure for repair and all of that around it develop?
Yeah, I could answer on that. First of all, those type of products can't enter in EU inner markets. So they will change their way also if they want to get into the inner markets. But of course, with e-commerce and selling from there, yeah, nobody can guarantee that you will get, but in the long run, also they will change the way they produce and doing the products.
No, absolutely. We had an interesting project some time back about a repair marketplace, because I personally had this experience a couple of years ago that I had a stereo which we specifically bought for the living room, and it fitted perfectly, and I didn't want to throw it away, so I wanted to get it repaired. And it was incredibly hard to find a place that would actually still repair a stereo system. They would all basically tell me, like, hey, buy this new one. It's anyway cheaper than repairing your old one. So I think there needs to be infrastructure being developed. These small mom and pop shops that we had back in the days where you would go repair your shoes, repair your stereo, they just don't exist anymore. Max?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that maybe we have to go back in time to find a solution and to just open up more repair shops. As you've seen in mobile phones or the little repair shops popping up, maybe this is a good way to go also to promote work. And there's many studies on that repair is actually promoting work and more employees, and it's a good way to go to support the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe a related question that came, how do you educate the customers? How do we get the customers to participate? Any thoughts on that? I mean, through your experience, how did you see that with the puzzle phone or with other solutions that you've been working on?
I think that how we consume and customers' awareness is rising all the time, and also customers wanted to have those. And a good example is that nowadays, if you open any kind of media or newspaper, you can't read it through without at least 3-4 news and articles about the circular economy and this type of issues. So I think that people are ready. It's more about now companies, because this systemic change, the disruption is never ever a fun exercise. It changed so much.
Yes, that's true. Maybe a follow-up question that came in here. I mean, we spoke about the repairing and taking things back, and that very often needs to happen locally. Will that drive a shift towards a more local production and manufacturing and basically take back repair from your point of view? Max?
Yeah, maybe the Reframe example is a good example for that, because it's not just about new technology, it's also pushing urban manufacturing. And what you also saw in the Corona crisis, that this distributed manufacturing of face masks, for example, in several countries. You see kind of that you have micro factories, urban manufacturing coming back in terms of crisis. And I think that's kind of, you have to think local. Many things can be still globally and should be still globally, but I think you can also, or you have to think also more in local resource loops. Think of for example, of construction waste. That's so heavy, that's nothing you can transport over miles or hundreds of miles. So basically, in the construction sector, you have to think locally to reduce construction waste, for example, reuse construction waste.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Adding on this also the Industry 4.0 and our manufacturing capabilities have changed totally. That if you want to get in the mass market in the past, you have to build a mega factory. But that is not anymore the case, that we have really flexible, small, and much cheaper machines that we could actually bring the production also closer for inner markets, that it doesn't have to all build in mega factories.
And 3D printing comes to mind, isn't it? We had the opportunity to visit a small startup that's doing metal 3D printing locally, actually, close to Tampere. producing a lot of the things that traditionally were done in China. So I think there is something to it. And how do you believe this will change the ecosystem? There's a question about the ecosystem and the retail ecosystem itself having a problem with the last mile very often. But how do you see that in the context of circular produced products, where they need to take them back, where they basically need to guarantee that they can be repaired and all of that? How do you think that will change the retail ecosystem? Maybe also back to what we said earlier, small mom and pop shops, basically, or what we've seen with the iPhones. In every shopping mall, you now have a mobile phone repair shop these days popping up. Will we see the comeback of shoemakers and small electronic repair shops?
Good question. I mean, I think repair is getting stronger and stronger. You see that in the US, and the right to repair. It's more the US movement. It's more like if you can't fix it, you don't own it. Idea that basically it's this deep black boxing of products. You know, my product. If it's my product, I can also open it and fix it. And I think that's also a way of democratizing, again, the approach to technology. So as I remember my dad, he was able to repair things, and maybe in the future products are again designed so that even you're able to repair it at home. So you don't have to send it back, because it's so easy designed that you can just replace a part, like PCs 15 years ago.
I had a car that my front light was broken, and usually in old cars you could change the lamp bulb, but I have to take that in a service because they didn't let me in. So.
Yeah, and you see that. I mean, look at the iPhone. You cannot. I mean, back in the days, the good old Nokia, you could replace the battery, you could replace virtually a lot of things there. Nowadays, there's no chance in the world you have that. A question more on the regulatory side, from your experience and in your opinion, would extended producer responsibilities drive companies to adopt circular economy, or is it more a consumer-driven thing? Where do you think is the right level? I mean, in the hurricane picture, you were talking about 4 different areas, basically the companies themselves, the users, the customers, the regulators, and then the startups that are pushing. Where do you see that balance? Where's our responsibility, but where's also the responsibility of the regulator here?
That's a tough call. But currently, I mean, if I think of the recycling system, it's currently not working that good, because like the costs for recycling is spread over all company participating in the recycling system. So if you, as a single company, improve your product so that it's easier recyclable, you don't get the benefits. The benefits are distributed to all to everyone, basically, to the system. It's a difficult thing how to then. In France, they developed kind of a recycling bonus, for example. I think that maybe something that you get a bonus when you develop a reusable, a repairable product. Or what I was thinking of recently, or what we were thinking of, that actually you get a bonus, CO2 emission bonus, if your product is being repaired. So every time your product lifetime is prolonged, your CO2 balance as a company is being reduced. So you have to think totally a new ways of making policy, I think, and it's getting more complex, but I think there's a way to go.
Yeah, I believe strongly that it's a customer pull, definitely, and one of the latest survey that I just read was that in China, for example, they still believe owning the products are still status symbols and so on. So 70% of people really want to own and so on. In German, the same percent is 26%, and in Finland, much less. So it means like me, my mobile phone. I don't have any reason why I own my mobile phone. Actually, the access would be enough, because any way you have to change that in 4-5 at least 4 years, every 4 years. So I don't have emotional bond in that, but it's really important for me.
And I think we will see the younger generation. You already see that today, that sharing, and I think, Max, you mentioned it in the beginning, owning a car is not as important as it was in the previous generation, when owning a car was really something important. It really showed who you are, specifically in Germany. That was basically the status symbol you had. You would basically wash your car every weekend, just your neighbor could see it. So, and I think that is changing fundamentally in the current times, with the younger generation not really appreciating that fact. And I think the current crisis situation actually accelerates that we realize that having all these material things is not necessarily important. If you're stuck at home, then you need other things, and it's a lot of it's much better if you can get these things when you need them and give them away when you don't need them. So I think we will see a lot of change there.
And the city trend that cities get bigger and bigger and more dense. It's also apartments get smaller and smaller. So there's no room for owning stuff.
Yes.
And I also wanted to mention that, of course, thinking of ecosystems again, a city, if you share cars and reduce the traffic or the number of cars by 70%, think of all the space you can use for parks, for playgrounds, for housing. It's incredible how much space you can save from streets. Like, I think it's about 40% of the city infrastructure is for cars.
Yes.
So,
No, absolutely. And we're back to the 3D printing. And there was a question about digital spare parts and additive manufacturing. I mean, just imagine you can print all of these products at home with your own 3D printer. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to ship your stuff around the world. I think there's a lot of digital solutions that will change fundamentally. Unfortunately, we're close to the end of the session. Maybe one last question. Will product design manufacturing companies open source their designs so that spare parts can be produced locally? I mean, what's your thinking there from your experience, but also your research?
In the long run, definitely more and more. The maintenance and spare parts is enormous business at the moment. But circular design is not only designing a product; it's also designing the whole system. Means that the business model might change so radically that it start to be a business again. The other question is also that will those be open source? For if it's original spare part from manufacturer, maybe you will still pay something on it. I don't know, or maybe it's impossible to keep it. If you let it on the web, it's free.
Yes, it will become free very, very fast.
Yeah, exactly.
So I said the previous one was the last question, but I really like the last one because it ties very much back to our circular design in action theme of the day. From your experience, I mean, where should companies start in transforming towards circularity? So what's the starting point? Is it taking one product? Is it taking a product range? Is it starting systemic, as you said, Tapani, across the whole company to get the mindset shifted? What's your thinking there?
I think that the best way to start is of course the most important. You have to have a motivation inside. So any of the consultants can go there and push forward these kind of initiatives. It really have to be self-motivated that we want to go there. But it's I would say that the lowest risk and the best, because it's a learning process. It's a huge learning process. Means that start with the small, means that pilot some of the products first, make the spearhead product and learn from that. And that spearhead product will change your product ranges, and in a long term, everything and how you actually do things and your business. So I would start with piloting different type of projects inside first.
Max?
Yeah, I wanted to add that, but I think you have to do the pilot in a kind of how do you say, like different setting. So because like if you have the same setting and the same tools and the same basic thinking still in place, it's your product pilot will probably fail.
Yeah.
So you have to create a kind of a satellite, a spin out, maybe something where people can create their own KPIs and their own targets for that product. So that's also, of course, an investment and risk you have to take. But it's more that you create this playground, this room for innovation, eco-innovation and development. In my opinion, if you do it in the same system structure, company structure, then it's more difficult.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Max. Thanks a lot, Tapani. We're basically almost at the top of the hour. Thanks a lot. Very good discussion. There's actually more questions, and if you want to ask more questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. It's basically simply firstname.lastname@tyval.com, and we're happy to basically get back to you with more answers. A couple of things before we close. If you want to continue the discussion, you're also more than welcome to do that in a channel we actually established, Digitally Circular, on LinkedIn. Digitally Circular is a bi-monthly event we established, and this is basically a group of almost 200 professionals coming from digital, circular economy, different walks of life that are interested in topics, and it's a forum to discuss and share things beyond these webinars, these events. Two other things. We have a white paper, The Strategic Dimension of Circularity, coming out on the 26th of May, so stay tuned for that. And there will be new Digitally Circular events starting after the summer. So this is the last webinar we have under the Digitally Circular series, but there will be more in August, September, after the summer break. If you want to stay up to date on these, when these are, what we're doing, or you would like to be the first one to see the white paper that we will be publishing on the 26th, please head over to LinkedIn and follow Tyval there. That's where you basically get the latest news from us and on the events that we basically have. Thanks a lot to everyone. Thanks a lot again, Max and Tapani, for the great presentation and the great discussion. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. It's a short week in many countries, and hope to see you in one of the future events. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.